Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about turbocharging a basic engine. And we're going to be talking about how to do it efficiently, and we're going to be talking about why to do it. Now, the first thing is, turbos are great. And the reason for that is actually, of course, everybody knows that you can make huge top-end power with turbos, so turbos are good for power. But the key thing really is that turbos are absolutely wonderful when it comes to efficiency. And that's the key here. Now, we are taking a short look back at the engine that we built on the first video. The goal was to make an efficient performance engine, a compact 2-liter 4-cylinder twin cam 2-valve carb engine, 120 horsepower with extreme economy rating. So it's very efficient for fuel, and yet it also made a reasonable power. Now, if you have this kind of engine and you decide that now you're going to be needing more power, let's say you want to make 150 horsepower. So, to make 30 more, you actually have to do quite a lot if you want to be doing it with the normally aspirated configuration. Now here we have a pre-build that I did just so I can demonstrate the thing, what's so good about turbos is. This is the exact same engine that we just built on the last video, but we have made it produce the desired 150 horsepower while changing absolutely nothing about the configuration. So we're using all the same low-end parts and the top-end parts. Everything is the same. We have the same twin carb configuration. We're running the same fuel and stuff. So, but what this does, so you can definitely make this horsepower with a naturally aspirated configuration. The problem is that we are losing quite a lot in the efficiency part of things. So we can see here that the economy rating is now 543, and that is actually more than 100 grams worse than the base engine. We are doing 27% worse fuel economy. And the next thing is, now as we compare the power graphs of these two engines, you can see the ghost graph, the darker ones on the table here. They are the ones that show the more highly tuned 150 horsepower engine. And we will immediately notice that while the more highly tuned engine makes a lot more power at the top end, it also loses basically the exact same amount in the lower rev ranges. And once you look at the economy graph, which is the green one below here, you will see that this engine, which is the 120 horsepower, has the most efficient rev range at the mid and lower end of the spectrum, and the 150 horsepower version has it right at the top end of the rev range. So the numbers already tell that we are losing a huge amount of economy, but then in real life driving with an actual transmission, we will have actually even worse results in the economy category, because the efficiency range is just way out of where the engine will be used under normal driving. So, okay, let's go back to the 120 horsepower engine, and now we will start doing turbo. Let's clone this one, and let's start playing around with the settings. Okay, let's call it turbo 150 horsepower, because that's the goal. So we want to now make the same exact power as that aggressive cam sports spec engine, 150 horsepower. The first thing we do is we switch to forged pistons. Now, you can do turbo without forged internals, but the forged pistons, what it does is actually it gives you a lot more room in the knock resistance department. So you will be able to run higher boost with this piston type. And the rest of things we don't need to change. We will have a quality slider set to 0, obviously, so we know that we are not cheating our way into the results. So the next thing is we will drop compression ratio, and we will drop it quite a lot. And the reason why we do this is we want to have more room to run more boost, because the less compression ratio we have, the more window there will be for added air through boosting it with the turbo. And the next thing is we we'll go into the actual turbo stuff. And since we are in the near year 1980 still, we will be doing a simple journal bearing turbo. And of course we could do ball bearing, but what that basically only does, it makes the turbo spool earlier. And to keep things realistic, we would be using journal bearings on a production engine at this time frame. Okay, so then we will start looking at intercooling. Okay, in real life we do get turbo engines without intercoolers. At least we did in the early years, but that is something that the game doesn't do very well. In reality, those engines work pretty well, but how the game works, you will be looking at intercooling if you do turbo. It's just something that if you want efficiency, you will need to use that. But we will look for the smallest possible intercooler because it's going to be lighter and cheaper, and we are running an everyday turbo system. We want to be using small components. Okay, let's start from a kind of baseline like this, and then simply we see we are getting extreme knocking, which is no surprise. We will simply start going down with the boost pressure, and we will go down as far as until we get rid of the knock. Okay, so now we have a sort of a baseline. The engine is running without knock, but we will immediately see that we are getting flow restrictions in the system. Now the one important lesson I had in mind for this video is that the turbo system here actually is not supposed to glow green. All other components here, if they show anything other than green, it's bad for you. But with the turbo, things are a little bit different, because a turbo will inherently restrict airflow through your engine, but it will also make boost pressure whenever it is able to spool up. So to be able to make the turbo spool up early in the rev range, you will necessarily be getting some resistance in airflow at the top end. So let's put that into other words. If you want your turbo to be effective, you will need to balance the flow capacity in accordance to the rev range where you will want to be making power. And for a street-driven everyday engine, obviously we want to have the power where we use it, right? So yet again, for efficiency and drivability, we're not looking at the most extreme configurations we can do. We're looking to improve the power and torque during the mid-range where the engine is actually used. Okay, so we don't touch the turbo sizing anymore right at this point, but we will address the thing that we are getting pretty severe exhaust restriction. So we will jump right into the exhaust window, and we will increase the diameter of the exhaust system. Okay, we go over the necessary to see if there's any more to be had. Now, if we look at the economy rating here, we remember from the normally aspirated engine that we were able to use the exhaust diameter as a sort of a final touch to reach the best possible economy rating. But on a turbo engine, the turbo is already restricting the flow, so that effect is already done, so we don't need to use a sort of a too small exhaust diameter anymore. And we can see that we went 10 horsepower up in peak power just by adjusting the exhaust diameter, and we can see that going bigger is not gonna be helpful anymore, so 225 is where we stay. Now then, we already noticed that our economy ratings are way down on the high cam naturally aspirated engine. We are massively more efficient, even though the optimization process is still a long way to go. So immediately we can see that we are a lot more efficient, and also our reliability rating hasn't dropped nearly as much compared to the base engine as it did with the aggressive cam normally aspirated engine. So now then, we are making 5 more horses than we need, so we will see if we can go still lower on the cam profile. And we can see that that immediately improves our economy, but we are getting in the range where we are also likely to start knocking. Okay, now we are making the exact power we wanted and with better economy. So the next thing is we will start with the ignition timing, and we will see that more advanced is gonna knock, and retarding will slowly start losing power. But now there's one interesting thing, is just like with compression ratio you can go lower to allow more airflow using the turbo boost. The same is true also with the ignition timing. On a normally aspirated engine, if you want to do a lot of power, you need to be doing a lot of advance to get it optimized. But on a turbo engine, you actually want to find the lowest possible ignition timing, the least advanced one that is still nearly maximally efficient, because that will yet again allow you to run higher boost pressures. And the next thing is, let's see, I will show you. We are now knocking if you run 54 timing. 53 is sort of optimized, but then if we pull it back to 50, we are no longer optimized, but this will allow us to run more boost, like so. But we will now actually drop the maximum boost a little bit lower, so we can see if there is actually a number that is yet better optimized. And we will see that we can go pretty high indeed, and the best number is actually at 58. So this is something we need to balance between boost pressure and ignition timing and see which is more efficient. And you will also notice once you start playing with these different combinations that this will also affect your torque curve, and it will affect where your peak torque is actually going to be achieved at. So there are many things that you can optimize it towards, but the rule of the thumb is you don't want to run any particular boost pressure per se, because boost pressure as a single parameter is nothing important. The thing that actually matters is airflow, and many of you will know that a larger turbo with the same pressure will flow more air. So the only reason why we would be willing to run more boost pressure on this configuration is if we wanted to make the same power we're making now with a smaller turbo. Make sense? So if we are not happy with the boost threshold, the RPM at which we are starting to make the maximum boost pressure, then we would possibly want to use a smaller turbo to make it spool up earlier, and to make the same power we would then have to increase boost pressure, and for that we would need to create more room either by dropping compression ratio or retarding ignition. Okay? But now, since we are looking pretty good in the economy rating and the boost threshold is looking nice, we will see if our turbo is indeed yet still optimized in its sizing. And the interesting thing happens now. If we start altering the compressor size, we will see that no matter how big we go, we will only be making less and less horsepower. And there, whenever you see something strange like this with the turbo sizing or possibly the cam profile, you push up the number but you don't get any returns. This is a question of optimizing, and why this happens is either we are not optimized with the turbine turbine sizing, or we are not optimized with the cam profile. So if we want to start altering the size here, we need to be looking also at the cam timing and the turbine sizing. But now we will just try to find the smallest possible compressor size that doesn't drop the power too much. Actually, I will see if we can go a little bit smaller, so we will be getting a little bit better spool up. So 149 horsepower, and then when we look at the turbine, each click will reduce 1 horsepower if we go like this. So what about if we go up like this, and we see the same thing? It doesn't do anything. So now we will find the lowest turbine size, the smallest size that will give the 149 horsepower. This is, you just go back and forth like this, and you will find the optimum setting. So now then, what we need to consider now is to what do we need to do to find that one missing horsepower? Because economy efficiency is very good right now. We were able to move the boost threshold RPM level down quite a bit, which is extremely nice. So we could just add more boost, but then we are getting knock. So now we start looking at the ignition timing again, and we can see that we can drop this 2 notches, 2 clicks without losing, almost any economy. And now we have room for more boost, but not enough. Okay, so back to ignition timing, but now we are losing too much. Now we're losing too much in that respect. So once economy starts really hurting, then you know that you can't go any more in that respect. Okay, so what about if we alter the cam timing a little bit? Just 1 click up and we will be doing the full 150. And actually, if we look at the numbers, yeah, economy is kinda hurting, which is not desirable, but I think actually what we want to do now is we actually want to, yeah, you see, we pump the compressor size up by just 1 notch, and we are making the full 150 power, and we are very efficient. Okay, so now we have optimized the cam profile, the turbo sizing, the boost pressure, and ignition timing. And now, since we did go a lot less aggressive cam, that means that we can actually now drop the maximum RPM limit just a little bit. We will get 1 more point in reliability, because we don't need to be running to 6200 RPM now, because our peak power is lower and we are still getting the good area of top end power. So by reducing the max RPM just a little bit, we get more reliability, and that is obviously a good thing. So now we have again changed many settings as compared to the last edition. So we will see what it happens with the exhaust diameter. Once we start playing with this, we can see that larger will already start hurting performance, and smaller does it even more so. So we are optimized here also. So now as we run the engine, we can see where the peak boosts comes in. 2700. Yeah, we will be happy with that. And we are running very reliably, and it's all looking pretty good. So now the end result is that we are actually within less than 3% of the fuel efficiency of the lower powered naturally aspirated engine, and we are only 2 points worse off in the reliability rating. So now we have a huge difference in efficiency with the normally aspirated engine making the same horsepower as the turbo engine. So this is the thing why turbos are so great. Everybody knows you can make power with a turbo, but the main point is you will make efficient power, and that's the main thing. That's why you want to be looking at possible forced induction if you can't just go do a bigger engine. So here we are. Thanks for watching. Hopefully it was useful for you, and hope to see you again on the next video.